Discover the best book marketing strategies in today's session with JV Hilliard. He is a best-selling author of multiple books and principal of Draft Nation. Welcome to Awakened Titans podcast with Lily Patrascu. Mind-blowing conversations with influential business titans sharing how you can manifest abundance, love, joy, success through quantum awakening, quantum manifestation, quantum healing, quantum miracles, exponential business growth, and innovative products and services. The first question is, what are the key elements of a successful book marketing strategy?
Well, from my end, there's several. The first is use the resources that you have that are free to you. And what I mean by that is these days to do any kind of marketing is relatively expensive. If you don't count the time that you put into it, and you should, social media is an excellent way to get your book promoted. People buy it from there. They end up following you from there. They become fans of your series. You can find different writers groups and reader groups online that are related to the genre in which you write. And therefore, as you befriend them and contact them frequently, you can then push your product their way. And in this case, social media is free, save for the time you put into it. And I would suggest all authors take advantage of that. This is not a company where you're going to sell a billboard with your book on it. This is not the kind of business that will allow you to go out and just shake a bunch of hands, and sell books. So use that social media because it's free to you, save for the time that you invest in it. And I use that term the right way, invest in social media. Secondly, different books, in particular different genres, have the ability to get out to conventions. All authors go to book signings, whether they're at a library or a local bookstore or a used bookstore, or they create an event for a book launch. All those kind of things you can do, and you can meet your readership. And that's important. Get to know them. And as you get to know them, make sure that you collect from them their email addresses. You want to be able to connect back to them. And the reason that's important is if you sell a book on Amazon, which all of us do, Amazon doesn't tell you who bought that book and how to get a hold of them and how to reconnect with them. But if you meet them at a library, you meet them at your own book signing, that's a place where you can ask for that information. And if they like book one, you're going to be able to sell them book two through the rest of the books that you write for the rest of your life. And thirdly, in that same vein, use an opportunity to get out to conventions. There's writers' conventions, there's readership conventions. There are conventions that pull people together, like pop culture or sci-fi fantasy. For me, is usually found in Comic Cons or Galaxy Cons or Dragon Cons. And you're not always going to meet all the fans that you want to meet there, but people will find you, they'll come up to your booth, they'll talk to you, you'll be able to sign autographs. And from there, again, you'll be able to spread the word about your book, building your brand, get people to rebuy and rebuy and rebuy as you move forward. So those are the three principles, elements that I would tell you. Use social media, get out and meet as many people as you can, and make sure you build your email list.
Thank you. What are the best ways to get as many positive reviews as possible?
You have to ask for them. As simple as that sounds, part of the problem is that most authors have a tendency to be introverted. And I see that a lot when I'm out at places where there's multiple authors selling at the same time. Sometimes they won't talk to the person that's passing them unless the person engages with them. You've got to be an extrovert. You've got to sell. I'm not talking about being a sham wow guy or one of those late night pitches that you see on TV. It doesn't have to be that crazy. You just have to engage. And I often engage by asking someone who's passing by my booth, hey, what do you like to read? And if they say it's something that I write, then I can engage with them because at that point I've already pulled them in. And so part of that comes from, approaching people and making sure that you engage. Secondly, follow up. Now that you've got them and they are, interested readers, reconnect with them. Send them a newsletter. Create a newsletter that you could send out through your email list for that. Follow them and have them follow you on your social media applications so that they're aware of that stuff. And even if you don't talk to them, they'll frequently see your name. They'll frequently see your products as they come by because it's in their feed or it's something that they've liked or favored or however they've followed you as part of that. And then I think, lastly, make sure that it's not too much. Like sometimes you just get spam, and if it's overkill, people will unfollow you They won't respond to your stuff. So I typically only send stuff out when I have a new product coming out, I have a new book coming out, or something significant is happening. Like I'm launching a new series, or I've changed publishers, or something has happened there that's newsworthy. And that way you're not beating people to death. And when they get something from you, they know it has gravity, and they should want to check that out.
Thank you. What's the best way to get your first 100 reviews? The reason I ask this is because when you get your first 100 reviews, Amazon boosts your book a lot more thereafter. And you also have social proof, more credibility, and you have a higher likelihood that the potential buyers may actually buy faster.
That's right. So a few things there. Again, getting back to my initial answer last time, is you have to ask for those reviews. They don't come easy. People don't like doing it. It's an extra chore for them, or oftentimes they feel like they'll go on and leave you a ranking, but they don't want to put a review on there. So ways that you can do that is find people that are friendly to you, that are willing to buy your book and leave it. At first, especially if you're a new author, that is one of the hardest chores that's out there, because people don't know you. They sometimes won't buy your books until your series is finished, because they feel too many times they've been left hanging, especially with Amazon, with all the indie authors that are on there, that they start into it and they get a book or two in and they don't finish the series. And so people will now wait for the series to be finished and then buy them all and then leave their reviews. There are services out there that will provide opportunities for reviews. And when I say that, this is an important differentiator. Do not pay for reviews. Just do not do it. Paying for reviews it's a bad practice. However, oftentimes you can find yourself into blog tours, or you can find yourself into book review groups, or others that are book clubs that will read your book all at once and then leave reviews for you. And then you can get 4, 10, 20 reviews at the same time, as well as getting your product into the hands of as many people as you can. And those blog tours help, because now you're on someone else's website and they have 1,000, 5,000, 30,000 followers that are going to read those blog posts. And even though they might only be 500 words long or 1,000 words long, people that visit that and look at that person as respected influencer in the community will then say, "Oh, I want to follow this person," or "How can I help them? I'm going to buy that book, or I'm going to buy this series of books," and go out and do that. And as for that, always ask for the review when you're done with your blog tour. When you're on a show like this, make sure you're plugging that, and that way you're doing that. But it's really frowned upon to pay someone to do a review. It's kind of like the same theory about paying someone to take a poll. Oftentimes when you pay someone to take a poll, they feel obligated to do or say something nice about you, and it taints the actual outcome, and that's not good for you, and it's not good for them. So stay away from the pay for review services, but find those services that, hey, if I'm paying you to be, on your blog tour, you're going to take me to 7 or 8 different sites that you're all together, and you guys are allowing me to respond to questions and answers, stuff like that, without it being a pay for review situation. That'll get you in front of a bunch of people. It also helps you get more followers on social media from that.
Thank you. What's the best way to reach book clubs and make sure they accept your book as a suitable book for their particular club? Is it that they randomly tend to select books, or is it that you have to take a more proactive approach and contact as many book clubs as possible and see if your book gets selected? That's
right. So you're 100% right. You have to be very proactive in that regard. Now, there's a micro level and there's a macro level here. The micro level is reaching out into your community, wherever you live, because if you're a local author, local book clubs will often pick you up because you're a local author and they want to have a chance to meet somebody. They'll invite you out, oftentimes to wine and cheese, or you're going there for Sunday coffee or whatever it might be, and you get a chance to discuss your book after their group has read it. And of course they buy it. That's the whole point of it. They're buying it. You're not giving it to them for free. And so you're getting those sales coupled with the hopes that you get good reviews, and then you get to interact with them, which will allow you the chance to, again, gather their contact information so you can reconnect with them down the road to sell them the next thing. At the macro level, you're absolutely right. You have to look at social media and find groups. I belong to several sci-fi fantasy author groups. You can find reader groups like that. You can find folks that are in, and for my books, because I write, high fantasy and fantasy adventure stuff. You can find crossovers with people that are in comic books, or people that read graphic novels, or people that like those types of movies that would also like those types of books. So you can find them on social media. You can find them by Googling them, as simple as that is. And then also contact your local libraries or library systems, because oftentimes they have reader groups. They even have scribe groups, which are basically authors that come together at the libraries to help each other with beta reading, or help each other, with editing as they do. And those groups will also try to help you. And sometimes you can get lucky and get a large one that has 3,000 or 4,000 readers in it, which you have to fight for. And sometimes you got to get in line for. In other cases, you'll find a local library or a library system that might have 8, 10, 30 branches to it. And they put you in touch with a slew of book clubs that you can then reach out to. You're not going to get them all. And sometimes there is a way, because they're reviewing books, or sometimes they have a theme. This time of year, people are reading horror stuff. Then there might be Christmas things, or, cozy romances, or whatever it is. And you might have to wait for the right time to introduce your books to them. And if if you're patient in that, you'll be able to get into those systems, and eventually get a chance to meet as many as you can.
Thank you. Do you find that living off of books is enough, or is it that you have ancillary products that you offer?
Yeah. So in many instances, unless you're in the top 10% of authors, it's a side hustle. You're not going to make as much off these books. And in fact, one statistic that gets repeated at a lot of the conferences I go to is, to be in the top percent of authors, you've sold 1,000 books. And when you think about that, after royalties and expenses and all that kind of stuff out of that, that's barely a car payment a month if you're doing it the right way. So it's hard to live off of that. You're going to have to sell a lot of those things. Oftentimes, authors will do that, and they'll sell not only additional products. So like when I go to my Comic-Con shows, I have other products that I sell along with it that might be attractive to that audience. By way of example, I've got scrolls with missives from chapters in my books. I've got maps. I've got oversized playmats for gamers that like to use that for Magic the Gathering or their Pokemon games that have stuff. So they're looking at my product all day long, but they're looking at something that's really cool as part of that. I've got bookends. I give away stickers for laptops. I give away bookmarks. When they buy a book, I even have bags on them. There's this old theory that the people that made money at the gold rush were not the people looking for the gold. They were the people that made the pans that they used for the gold. So in my case, I take bags with my logo on them on the back. And anytime I see someone carrying something around, even if they haven't bought a book from me, and I know they're going to be at this convention for 2 or 3 or even 4 days, I give them a book bag for free. It costs me 50 cents to have it made, and 50 cents to be shipped to me, and I give them it, and then they're walking around with a drawstring bag over their shoulder for the 3-4 days, and they go home and they have it for the next few years. And so those are things that you can sell that are physical. The other side of it that most authors do is they turn to systems like Fiverr and Upwork and Readsy, and they offer their services as ghostwriters, editors, formatters, communications experts that can do work for others, and that supplements that income until you sell enough books to be able to do it as a career, and that's hard to do. And when I first became published, my publisher told me, you're not going to make any money until you get to book 4, and she was correct. Thankfully I was a little lucky. I started making money at book 3, but book 1, no one knows you, and so it's hard to get that to sell. Book 2, you're starting to build a little bit of a following. By book 3, there's an expectation that stuff's coming out. By book 4, you're now ingrained in your community in some respects, and therefore you're going to be able to have the ability to reach out to people and sell enough books to maintain a lifestyle for you and or your family. It just takes time to get there, and so don't expect success overnight financially. But if you keep at it, it's something that you can work towards. And if it's a goal, and that might mean that this is just a part-time thing or a side hustle until you do make it, and then once you do, you can flip it out and walk away from your day job and do this full time. Or some authors also get paid advances by their publishing houses to stay home and just write. Right now, but you have to remember, an advance is not a salary. An advance is an advance on future royalties that you'll owe back. So if they give you a $25,000 advance to stay home and write, you've got to sell $25,000 worth of royalties to make that up just to break even. So keep that in mind when you're offered any kind of advance, or if they come in and buy your book from you and they give you a book contract to do that. There's plenty that they're investing in you, and you're going to work together, but you got to sell a heck of a lot of books to work that off. And so you are going to be writing full time as part of that.
Thank you. What's the best way to find your top 100 super fans?
Oh, you know what? They come to you. That's the fun part about that question. Super fans are not shy, and they come to you. I've had people that have flown to conventions, paid money to get on a plane, paid money to stay in a hotel room, paid money to get into the convention, to come up to my booth and give me a piece of fan art, or ask me a question in person, because they, we don't live next to one another. We may live 10 states apart. And they want to meet you, and they've come to see you. They present themselves in most instances. I even had one guy, the most humbling moment I've had was one gentleman created a baseball card with my face on it. And he had it in a baseball card collection that looked like he was walking around collecting baseball cards. When he opened it up, it was all the authors he had read and those that were his favorite. And he asked me to autograph my own baseball card. And at that point, you're the one that's humbled. You're the one that thinks you should give him something for doing that. But people care, and they're invested in you. And whether they want to write fan fiction for you, or whether they want to do fan art for you, or they want to stay in touch with you on social media, or they invite you to things, they're not going to be shy. But to get into the heart of your question, the way to really do that is you can tell when someone comes online and they leave a review for you and they're 5 stars and can't wait for the next. And it's a genuine review. It's someone that possibly you haven't even met yet, and they're waiting, and you have a chance to connect with them because they've left you a review or they've contacted you on your website. I always try to respond to people within 24 hours, regardless. It might be the smallest question about what happens, or I'm misinterpreting something in your book. Can you tell me what this means? Those kind of things. And they typically come to you, but by virtue of you staying in contact with them, more and more times you'll get over that 100 mark, and you try to get to your 1,000 super fans or 10,000 super fans. And that's where you want to be as an author.
Thank you. Now, imagine that nobody knows about you and you write your first book. How do you get your first super fans?
It's a game of attrition. You're not going to be able to, there's no easy answer to that, because unless you're famous or unless you're rich and can buy publicity, and that's 99% of us don't have either of those things. So it's a game of attrition. You literally have to keep your head down, grind, meet people on social media, ask them to read your stuff, ask them what they like to read, make sure that that you comment when they comment on you, don't ignore them, make sure that you're responding to them and with direct messages, even if that's frustrating, even if it's overbearing sometimes. But those are the kind of ways that you will breed loyalty by response. You'll breed loyalty by outreach. And don't wait for them to come to you. Reach out to them and say, hey, have you gotten book 4 yet? Or, hey, what did you think about what I did with this character? Did you like it, or didn't you like it, and why? And engage with them. And engagement breeds loyalty, and they're going to come back because they think that you care, and you should. You want to know what your audience wants. I'll give you a perfect example of one. I had a lady come up to me at a show that said, please don't kill this certain character. He's your Boba Fett. And in a way, she was saying, even though this is an evil character in the book, he's a very popular one, like Boba Fett from Star Wars. Don't kill him. And so you take those lessons from your readers, because you want to know what they think so that you can write a better book. And every book you write is better than the last, because you're engaging with your fans. You know what their expectation is. You know what they like to read. And even though you might disappoint them with the stuff that you're putting into it, it still makes for a good story. So they keep coming back. But at least by engaging, you'll be able to build that. And it takes time. 1 super fan begets 2, 2 begets 4, right? And so it's just a matter of time of getting there. You just have to put in the time to get it done.
Thank you. What's the best format for engaging with your followers, and which social media is best for it? I'll give an example. So is it a good idea to do, 1-minute videos and in TikTok? And if yes, what kind of format? Should you ask a question? Should you do certain types of posts? What did you find worked best for you in terms of helping you to attract your super fans?
Sure, I'll answer that in a couple of ways, because I have several tracks here. My fantasy adventure track I use X, TikTok, and Instagram. On Instagram, they have Bookstagram. On TikTok, they have Book Talk. And that community is wildly active. And if you get the right moment, you can have something go viral. So by way of example, when I did my book trailer for my first book, and I put it out, my cinematographer who had made it put it on his Instagram and did a hashtag Hogwarts because he was talking about the castle that he had built out of miniatures that he used in the video and said, can you tell if this is real or not? But that Hogwarts hashtag got all the Harry Potter fans looking at it. And within 2 months, it had over 500,000 views. Right. So, it's Instagram is because you have something visual to show them. It's in TikTok because it's very visual. You get people that will, if you send them an advanced reader copy, they will feature your book on their TikTok and things like that. So that helps. On the X side, the Twitter/X side, those are engaging conversations. Those are people that are typically coming to you with less visual, more quick hits, asking questions. And so I find that sometimes I get that. Now on my sports side, the stuff that I do for my sports writing, it's almost 100% either through the website or through Instagram. I mean, the website, we will get questions from members. People will engage in our community, of which I'm a moderator, and I'll be able to engage back and tell them yes, no, what I like and why I wrote something, or they'll find us on Instagram. Not to say I'm not bemoaning the others like Facebook and others, that we still have plenty of followers there. But Instagram, I think, is the one because, again, sports is very visual. So clips, photos, stills, shots that we've taken at practice, shots that we've taken at games, all those kind of things that are unique content that we put out, as well as podcasts. One of the things I do on the fantasy adventure side is I host my own show. I have one that's a short form video that we use for YouTube, and it's 10 minutes or less typically. And I record an author that also has a following, bring them on the show, and hope by doing that and cross promoting it, my followers will become theirs, their followers will become mine, and we'll both sell more books. And I also have a longer form one that used to be a blog talk radio show that now I've turned into a traditional podcast called The Realm. And that's a 30-minute interview. It's a little deeper dive. And again, I'm interviewing someone else, asking them questions about their stuff. Again, we cross promote it and we bring people together, their group following me, our groups following theirs as part of that. On the sports side, it's entirely different. It's almost like one-on-one because the news changes so quickly that when you put an article out, it might be hot for a day and then it's irrelevant, where your books will never be irrelevant. Your books are always something that you can move forward with. So the books that we do, whether it's a draft guide, a scouting guide, free agency primer, something like that, there's a shelf life to it. And once it's done, it's gone. You might as well throw it out because it's already 6 months old or a year old, where my books on the fantasy side, you can read forever.
Thank you. Is it a good idea to give out advanced reader copies to certain people that are likely to give you a review? And is it a good idea to select these people randomly from Facebook groups or so on? And if so, do you have to pay for the actual ebook and then you gift it to them? So that means that you will incur quite a lot of fees. Let's say your book is $2 and you want to give out, let's say 1,000 copies, then you'll have to pay $2,000. Or is there a better way to do this?
Yeah, so I'll start at the top. So yes, advanced reader copies are critical to help you not only to gain momentum whenever you have something coming out. So you're doing a 60-day countdown to a book release or a 30-day countdown. Now you're getting action and people will have time to read it and then do a review. Sometimes the reviews are not left on Amazon or Goodreads. Sometimes the reviews are done by video on TikTok or YouTube or wherever they post their stuff, on Instagram, right? Facebook. So you want them to you want to give them enough time to do that. Those ebooks we can get for free sometimes through our publishers, or sometimes with traditional, someone likes a hard copy, you could send it in the mail. And if you're in the US, you could send it through media mail, which is very inexpensive. It's $2 or $3, like you've said. But that $2 or $3 that you're going to get a bunch of books from your publisher anyway. They want you out there selling them, and they're not going to do any good sitting in your house or in the trunk of your car or in your garage. So giving them to people that have followings, if I gave them a $3 book and I get 5, 10, 20, 50 sales off of that, that's how I get my money back, right? So I might be giving you, because you're an influencer, a free book and it costs me $5 in time and stamps, or an ebook or an audiobook, and I email it to you. But then by the fact that you're talking about it and you've got 90,000 followers or 500,000 followers, I'm going to get that money back and then some through that multiplier effect, because those people might not have known who I was, and now they are.
Okay, so you're saying that it's worth the investment of sending out advanced reader copies to potential influencers, but then
Yes.
you do have to pay for the actual cost of the book, and there's no way of gifting the books for free. Is there? I mean, the ebooks. Is there any way of gifting books for free?
Yeah, so you can run free books downloads through things like BookFunnel or BookBub or others, Book Barbarian. There's a variety of those where you give away free e-copies of your book for a time. Now, if you're an indie author, that's easy because you're in control of everything. So you can give away free stuff. When you're working with a publishing house, that means they're losing revenue because you're giving away free stuff, right? And when someone gets something for free or at a discounted rate, maybe it's $1, and they're willing to buy those, and they go into the book bargain stuff, and they download it. Downloading it is one thing. That's a false advertising. So sometimes that'll jump up your Amazon rates because your book has been downloaded, but how many pages did they actually read? Some people will just grab anything for free and stick it in their library. That doesn't do you any good. You need to find people that are actually going to read your stuff. And then for that oftentimes the concept of them saying, well, look, I got their book for free, I am going to leave them a review, is okay too, right? Like, we're not telling them they have to leave us a review, but that's a considered thing. That, like, if you're going to do that, they want you to do that for you. So there are systems out there that will allow you to do that. And if you have a publisher, I get free books that they get delivered to my house whenever I launch something new, so I can give them away if people want that, or if I can sell them at shows and recoup the cost there. But the ebooks and the audiobooks, once they're created, there are ways where you can give them away for free, and it doesn't cost you. You don't have to buy one or gift it through Amazon. You can gift it through yourself if you are, traditionally published, hybrid published. There are ways they can do that. And then on the indie side, if you're giving it away on, like if you're lucky enough to get a BookBub, or you pay, a Book Barbarian, and they get it out to tens of thousands of people, and you get a bunch of downloads. Now it's in the hands of folks, and you hope that many of them read it and they leave you their reviews.
Thank you. The only thing is that the review will be appearing on their website, not on Amazon, which is where you want it to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Of course, we want it on Amazon because Amazon's the big dog, right? But I have reviews scattered on 20 different distribution channels, right? So I mentioned Goodreads, which is now owned by Amazon, or there's folks out there like Shepherd, or you could find it on iTunes, or sometimes if it's Kobo, Rakuten. There's plenty of places where you can go and leave reviews, and if you aggregate them all together, that's great. But you're right. I mean, the big dog where people go all the time because everyone has an Amazon account is Amazon to see them. And sometimes people will know to go on there to do that. And if they buy it, there'll be a verified purchase, which is what you want. That's the best kind of review you're gonna get. And that way it looks like someone paid money, and it doesn't look like it is. Someone paid money for the book, and then they took the time to leave a review. And those are the ones that are most trusted. But there are ways that you can leave Amazon reviews just as a Prime member, and you don't have to have bought it from them. I've had reviews left for me when people have bought it from me from a convention or a bookstore, and were kind enough to go on and leave a review on Amazon, even though they didn't buy it through Amazon. Amazon will still allow that if you're an Amazon shopper and you're either a Prime member or I think the threshold is like $50 a year. And in the aggregate, you have to spend over $50 a year to be able to leave a review for a product if you haven't bought the product from Amazon, and they allow you to do that. So there are ways that you can do that, and Amazon is the preferred. But ultimately, Barnes and Noble, iTunes are places where I've got reviews too that are just as important, because not everybody shops at Amazon, and there are people out there that don't like Amazon and they won't shop there for lots of political reasons or philanthropic reasons, and so they choose not to do that, and so they leave it in other places, and you got to be thankful for those too.
Thank you. I've never seen that option of like leaving a review for a book that you haven't actually bought on Amazon, but that's quite interesting that you can do that.
Yeah, you can leave it for any product so there are two ways to do it. It gets reviewed, and if you click on it, and you could say in your review, I bought this at a bookstore, or I bought this. And so if you're a Prime member, which means I forget what you paid over the course of a year for that, but you get all these free deliveries and benefits for that, so that you see that money back. if you're a Prime member, you'll have the right to leave a review for that. The second piece is if you've spent enough money, and I think it's either $50 or $80 as a threshold on Amazon over the course of a calendar year in the aggregate, which is what I meant before. So that people will do that, and then they'll have a right to do that. You can go on and say, I saw the author at a convention and I wanted to write this review for them. And the way you can also get around that is, leave something on Goodreads. Goodreads is free, and even though Amazon owns it, people that are looking for reviews often will go to Goodreads too, and you can do a lot of different things with your Goodreads account, including giveaway books and having campaigns that reach out to their membership as well.
Thank you. Are there any particular hacks that you have used that you haven't perhaps seen other people use that have worked tremendously well for you in terms of selling more books?
So it's I wouldn't call them hacks, but maybe pieces of advice. I think that some people are just better selling in person. I will sell much more if I'm talking about my book in front of people than if they're at a bookstore or looking at a small window on Amazon about the book. It's just natural. It's just, if you're good at it, it's better to be in front of people. And so I often will look for opportunities to speak, whether it's at a college or university and do a class or wherever. You have a chance to meet people at bookshops, bookstores, conventions, book clubs, things like that. And I would try to get in front of them. Secondly, have a good cover. People, before they even read a single word of your book, need to be sucked in by that cover. And that cover has to look like something that they expect in the genre in which they're buying. So if you go in and you have a Western themed cover and it's a sci-fi book, people that are trying to buy sci-fi books are going to pass you by. And when you think about the thumbnail that they leave on Amazon, it's got to be enough to catch your eye that big. So your cover has to blast them. It has to wow them. So that if they're in a physical bookstore, they're going to go and grab it and look at it and say, wow, I like this cover. And it identifies with me as a reader, in this case of sci-fi, right? So you want to be in that sci-fi section. And now that I've got you and I've got that cover, what do? I turn the book around, right? And you want to read stuff from people that are either endorsing the book or you're going to read that 250 word blurb. And that 250 word blurb has got to sell the other stuff that's in the book because they haven't even opened a book yet. Right. So that blurb on Amazon that sits on the side next to the picture, or that blurb on the back of the book that they pick up at the Barnes and Noble and turn it over and read it, has got to sucker them in. And there are word clouds and other kind of algorithms out there that will tell certain authors what the right kind of words are to appear in that blurb so that you're getting people when they turn it over. So by way of example, for me, words like adventure, words like harrowing, words like epic, words like evil, words like world, like those kind of things, magic. When people see that and they read 250 words and there's those words in there, they're more likely to buy it because those people have created that word cloud for you. You could find those online. Oftentimes, Amazon will help you with that kind of stuff because they want to sell more books, so they want you to put those words on the back. So you'll find them all the time, and that's why there's certain patterns to writing those blurbs. And now that the cover's caught your eye and the blurb has caught your attention, your imagination, now they're going to read the first couple of pages. So as much as this pains me to say, the cover is just as important as the stuff inside, because they're not going to pick up your book. They're not going to click to download free stuff unless they're attracted by the cover. And so the cover has to be aesthetically pleasing and it has to be genre specific. And so those are the kind of hacks that I would offer to those out there, and they're worth investing in. If you're creative and you want to do it on Canva and you feel that way, great. But oftentimes homemade covers look like homemade covers. It's so much better to invest with a professional that knows what they're doing, that understands your genre and has a history of selling books in your genre. Same thing with my audiobooks. I could have gotten anybody to do my audio voice for my books, but I went out and found a voice actor who was common, that people knew in fantasy adventure, and Victor Bavine, and then people will download it just because they like hearing his voice. They like the way he animates the characters from his reads, and so I made book sales by investing in someone that people like to hear because he's a real true professional and he's identifiable to my genre.
Thank you. Did you find audiobooks worked even more than the actual books in terms of bringing extra revenue, or was it not negligible if you were to compare the revenues?
The first book the first book is sold the most, right? And the reason why is like they can't read 2, 3, and 4 without reading 1. And so you there's a group of people that you'll pull through, and there's a group of people that have waited out there for what I would describe as sort of the series to be ended, so that they know it's going to be complete, and then they've bought it. But if you're writing series, they can't get the books 2, 3, and 4 without going through 1. So people will buy 1, or they'll reread 1 and then buy the next and move forward there. And not everybody always follows through, or they don't follow through on your timeline. Just because you released the book doesn't mean they got it that day, unless you're Stephen King or Sarah Moss or Michelle Obama. That doesn't happen. People just don't go out and get it. They don't pre-order that many. And even though you do, you might have a to be read list behind you. Like I had a guy connect with me and said, "I'm sorry, it took me 3 weeks to put your review up. I got your book the day it came out," but he had a TBR list that he was working through. And so you just have to be patient for that kind of stuff. But always, I would think that, if you're a series writer like I am, that first book will sell the most. It has to, or else they can't get to the others.
Thank you. What about the building a list? What ways are there for entrepreneurs to get on your list when they are reading your book? Like, what ways are there to build a list of relevant superfans? And
Sure. So yeah, there's plenty of ways, right? So as I mentioned earlier at the top, Amazon's not going to give you the list of people who bought your stuff. So you're never going to be able to track them down. So the way to do that is when you start to create your list, an email list in this case, make sure that you're getting people that hit your website. So if someone comes to my website and the first thing they see is a pop-up box that says, "Please sign up to my newsletter to keep apprised of new product that's coming out." Once they do that, you've now captured them. You know that they're interested in your stuff, or at least in your genre, before they've even made a buy. You've got them. On social media, very easily. You want to thank everybody. You want to slide into their DMs and tell them, "Hey, I appreciate you helping out. Let me send you something," or "Can I talk to you, leaving me a review?" Or the next book comes out in 3 weeks. Be ready for it. That kind of stuff, and exchange emails, and then purposely send them a thank you as part of that. In the same way, salesmen have been doing it forever, right? You sell somebody something, you send them a thank you note, handwritten. Well, in this day and age, a lot of that stuff is fake through digital media. So you want to use that, and you can use your social media to capture that as much as possible. So website, social media, and then the in-person stuff. The minute someone comes up to you in your booth, they meet you at the library, they meet you at a book signing, they meet you at a convention, have something there where they can sign and leave something with you as part of that, because that way you can connect with them again. And if they bought it 1 year and you got 2 more books that come out next year and you're not going to see them for another 10 months, make sure you've got it and send it to them in advance. And so those are ways that I build my list. And there are other ways too, like we mentioned BookFunnel and BookBub and all that kind of stuff. BookFunnel, if you give away a product, in order to give it away, you're capturing an email list of people that have downloaded it. So you're able to take that and download it into your greater list and be able to capture that as well. And there are several resources to do that. I mentioned BookFunnel because I think that's the most popular of them, or one of the more popular ways to do that people will go to get those free and reduced products. And for that, you're going to grab that email because they downloaded it, and then you can reach out to them directly. And so all of those things will help you build a nice list. Now, some authors, and I'm not saying you do this, some authors will exchange lists. If we're relevant to one another, and I've written a book that's very similar to yours, whether it's a business book, a sports book, a cooking book, it doesn't matter. If someone's bought mine, they might want to buy yours and vice versa. Some authors get sticky about that. I might have a list that's twice the size of yours, and I might not see as much value. In all honesty, this isn't a competition. Our books aren't that expensive. It would be different if I was selling a house, where there's one house and that's the only house. But if I have 5,100 names in my Rolodex and you have 10,000, I know I'm giving you you're giving me maybe a little bit more than I'm giving you, but these are names you probably don't have, and now you can reach out to them. And same thing, and it doesn't mean they're going to stop buying my books because you've gotten in front of them. They're hopefully going to buy both of our books. And so even though that's not as popular or as frequent, it's still something that I've seen done. And that's just up to the people. They might just trust each other, or they may know that their stuff is close to one another. So when you're asked, can you tell me, what your book is most like, be prepared to do that. And that way if you're going to exchange a list with somebody, they can say, well, I write, my books are like Game of Thrones, even though nobody's books are like Game of Thrones. That's Martin's thing altogether, but you could at least put yourself in that category so they know the kind of thing that it is. And if you guys are close enough, then your lists will like one another, and then you could kind of smash them together and make one larger list.
Thank you. Is there any way to tap into millions of readers' lists? For example, I know you mentioned BookBub. I'm familiar with that one. But are there any other places where there are millions of readers that authors can tap into in order to magnify their own email list and their own book sales?
Not that I'm aware of. Those that are the paid ones, right? So you're paying for that Book Funnel, BookBub, Book Barbarian, etc. As part of that, and there are fees that go out to do that. I mean, those lists are valuable. Some people, like I said, will exchange lists, but that's how they make their money. They make their money by having those people that are there, and they're not going to give that proprietary information away. Because if they did, then someone could give it away to the next, and then no one would use BookBub or Book Barbarian or Book Funnel as part of it. So, the answer is I haven't seen it, and those that have lists that are that large are often paid for, and that's a business decision you have to make. If you're an indie author, it's 100% on your shoulders. If you're working with a traditional publishing house, giving something away, they don't make any money at that. And even though you might be building your list, you've got to have an understanding publisher who's willing to do some of that stuff and say, you know what, I get it. We'll take one for the team here in the hopes of building a broader list so that we can sell on the next one.
Thank you. There are some Facebook groups that I have seen that are, let's say, book club, book readers kind of type lists. And I do wonder whether there's any way to get in front of those, whether it's contacting the admin and seeing whether there's a payment of some sort. Have you tried that?
I have. So there's plenty of those, and they're all different. And when you try to sign up for them, they typically send you something you sign off on for rules, and they'll suspend you or kick you out if you don't follow them. Some groups will allow you to advertise your books there when you have a new book coming out. Other groups do not. They don't, because they get solicitations all the time, and then they're inundated with primarily, authors that are just trying to build their own list. So they, more often than not, would not allow you to post your own stuff. You could post about other people's. You could meet people. You could take conversations offline, and that's a lot of work on social media, but it pays off, right? You just have to be committed to doing that. There are a few that I've found that will allow you to post, and there are those that are out there that I've seen consultants put together. Like there was one group that I was working with on Facebook that had about 6,600 sci-fi and fantasy book readers that they had, and for a small fee, they would bring you in, and as part of that, you would do a Facebook Live. They would offer you to a set of people that you can do interviews to. They would put out a push where you can give away 25 free copies in return for folks downloading your books and giving you better hit rates on Amazon and things like that. So they're good, but not all of them are like that, and some of them you're gonna have to pay for, and some of them you're gonna have to work for.
Thank you so much. That was such a fascinating interview. Thank you so much. And tell us where people can find your books.
Yeah, I'm easy to find. If you go to jvhilliard, HILLIARD.com, you'll find my website. You can get my books there, or at Dragon Moon Press, which is my publishing house. And of course, they're available ubiquitously. If you're an Amazon shopper, or you like to listen to audiobooks, you can go to Audible and find them there. And things like that. And on the sports side, look at draftnation.com. You'll find all my stuff there.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential business titans, providing you with the insights to awaken to your full potential, so you can get paid to be yourself, find true happiness, and manifest anything you desire.